Hello, and welcome to the first session of Changeling the Lost PbtA. This is a horribly messy hack that I wrote of what I like about Changeling the Lost, what I run and what I play when I play Changeling, into a game that brings together ideas from Urban Shadows, Masks, The Veil, Hearts of Wulin, all of those things, but keeps the feel and the atmosphere of Changeling. My name is Lowell, pronouns he, him, and the person who mostly wrote this, though Sherry did a lot of the organizing on the most recent version. And this session is part of the Gauntlet Gaming Calendar, which is an online gaming club / community that you can find out about at gauntlet-rpg.com. You can check out the games that we play there, maybe even come and join one. So you're going to hear me talk for an unfortunately long period of time here right at the start, because I want to walk through our CATS document, which is going to end in some discussion of safety, and then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what people have chosen for their characters or what they want to choose for their characters. We'll get that set. So the basic idea of Changeling is that people from the real world, through trickery, through force, through guile, through taking advantage of their personalities, were taken by these horrible figures known as the Keepers. They are immensely powerful beings that feed on something. What it is not entirely clear, but they take people through this other world called the Hedge, draw them through there, draw off some of the memories, and take them to these realms that they are the lord of, and force them to enact things, force them to be parts in a play, force them to serve or follow rules or things like that. And in that process, our characters are changed. They become different, and they fall into then what we call seemings. These are the sort of types of roles that they come to fill in. And I'll talk a little bit about what each of those are in a second. But our characters have somehow managed to escape. Many don't. The circumstances of your escape may not be clear to you. Passing through the Hedge takes away memories, both when you went in and both when you escape. So you may have a good sense of it, you may not. But when you've returned to the real world, the world has moved on and you remain changed. You are changed into this changeling. You have a different form, a different appearance, different powers. What normal people see is your mask. It doesn't look like your old self entirely. You can decide what it looks like, how close it is to your old self. But it is an illusion that normal people see, whereas other changelings see to your meaning what you actually look like underneath, whether you look like an ogre or you look like a figure of darkness or you're on fire or whatever. So there is a glamour, a small set of illusions that are sort of constantly around you. When you've emerged, you were found and brought into within the city, the structure of what's called the Freehold. The Freehold is the organization of changelings who have escaped and have put together courts, seasonal courts, each of them having a different focus. Spring being about joy, summer being about kind of wrath, autumn being about a kind of wild fear, and winter being about a kind of sadness. But there are variations within that. These courts exist to keep the contracts and bindings and magic in place that helps hide the Freehold from the glance of the Keepers. By having these courts, by changing the power, by doing all of these things, that helps keep them safe. But of course, this is a group of people who are all very messed up, who've all been through really, really terrible things, and have now tried to gather and work together. And there's some challenge, some pullback between those two things. You are part of what's called a motley, meaning that the four of you are joined together. You've made a compact, you've made a set of contracts, promises to be together to support one another. There may be other NPCs within your motley, but at least we start with you four. All your magics are contracts. They're bargains that you've learned with the forces of the world. And while we don't have you go through the sort of full contractual thing, when you want to do magic, we call it using a contract. And depending on how well you roll, you can have it happen. And it's really awesome. But if it's middling or fails, there are costs that you have to figure out and pay right away to do the magics that you want to do. A little bit easier are the moves that you have. These aren't contracts. These are things that you know how to do that are a little bit more solid and a little bit more substantial. Within your freehold, within your world, there are dangers. There are rogue changelings. There are changelings that would drag you back into the hedge. There's the vision of the keepers. There are other magical things. There's the threat from real world people. So those are all the things that are out there. That's the overall concept of the game, just so we are on that page. Our approach is very much PbtA style, meaning that we'll get you set up. We'll have an inciting incident. You will all have goals and entanglements and connections to other people. And so we'll let you move through the world, let your drives take us to where you need to go. You are trying to fit in and find your place within the freehold. And you're trying to deal with the complexities of dealing with other changelings and the courts and all those things. So that's sort of the aim, the approach is that kind of free rolling play. In terms of tone, I'd say this is PG-13 plus. This is like some of the CW series, maybe, or maybe an HBO a series in terms of darkness. Sabrina, Riverdale, those kinds of things is how I put it. It is not grimdark, and it is not intended to be sort of suffering and tragedy porn for our characters. There is a modicum of hope. You're trying to find your way through that. It is a game that has horror elements, but also emotional play elements in it. So that's kind of the tone we're shooting for. One of the ways that we help establish that tone is that we use a layered set of safety tools for our play. Let me walk briefly through what those are. At the baseline, we are using lines and veils, and there is a tab for that in the character keeper. And I've got a number of items listed on that. While we're going through the character creation process, feel free to go to the lines and veils and mark anything that you want to mark. A line means that it's a hard line. That's material we do not want to see in the game. That's not this kind of story we want to play out. That's not what we want to see at all. So if something really bothers you, feel free to mark that as a hard line for a topic or material that you don't want to engage with. A veil is a step down from that. A veil means that if we hit that subject matter, if we hit that material, we're either going to fade to black or we're going to only kind of reference it in passing. We're not going to see it fully on screen. We're not going to delve into it. And then ask first basically means this is interesting, but maybe check in before we get to that. Or if we start to introduce that, maybe we stop to check and make sure that everyone's comfortable with that. So feel free to mark those as you will. And if there are things that you want to add to that, there's plenty of space down below. So that's number one. That's our number one safety tool. Number two is the XCard, which we'll be using, which is basically a kind of interrupt for safety. You can do XCard by either saying XCard or doing this gesture, just so we know. XCard marks any material that you find objectionable, problematic, that you don't, not cool with the language that's being used, you feel something is wildly off tone. These are all reasons to XCard. You don't have to justify your decision. We may ask only like where we need to cut back to if it's not entirely obvious. So that's an important step. One of the common places we might do an XCard is maybe we start to lean towards something that we've got marked as a line or a veil, and no one has yet quite caught that we've headed that way. It's a good way to mark out, hey, I think we're heading towards this XCard that. The last thing I want to say about XCard is that if the first couple of times it happens at the table, you're like, I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. But then later on, you're not. It is absolutely cool and legitimate to XCard it at the later time. That's safety tool 2. And our last safety tool is our open door policy, which means that if you need to step away, if you need to walk away for whatever reason, physical, biological, like something's going on in your house, we understand it. We know that that can happen. It'd be great if you could say, hey, be right back, or I'm not coming back, just to tell us, but you're not obligated to that. So that is on as an escape route. Also related to that, if you get to playing and you get a session or two in and you're like, this is not the game I want to play, it is legit to open door out of a game. You shouldn't feel trapped or obligated to play in something that you're not enjoying or that is bugging you. So those are all out there. So let me talk about the different seemings briefly, just to kind of talk how I envision them. And then I know we've got some people that have made some choices on that. So we've got 6 different kinds. The first kind is the beast, meaning this changeling has an aspect of an animal or a creature or even an insect. They've been in a place where they've had to assume that role. They've become those things when they were in the hedge, and when they come back, they carry aspects of that, whether they're a canine or avian or or a wolf or a tiger or whatnot. A beast can be all kinds of beasts. Next are the darklings. The darklings are characters that are very much about fear. They're very much about a kind of isolation. They have been subject to being kind of held away from the world and being in darkness. Next is the elemental. These are often the weirdest of the changelings because an elemental has taken on aspects of fire or ice or an other abstract concept that they play with. These are characters that have been changed into something very, very different. And sometimes when they come back to the real world, they have a hard time understanding things. So they can be all kinds of different elements. The next is the fairest. These are the characters that the changelings that were kind of put in charge often, were in roles where they had to perform, where they had to be beautiful, where there was manipulation, all of that. These are the sort of courtiers of the changeling world. Then there's the ogre. The ogre is a character that had to do brutal things, was gifted with great strength, great power, and that has changed them to be more brutal, even if in their heart they're not that way. And then there are the wizened, sometimes called the wisened. These are characters, these are changelings who were put in a very specific role, like they were made into a fairy soldier or a fairy cobbler or a fairy butler or anything of these roles. And they were forced into these roles and they learned how to do them very well. And they've become that role. They've become, a changeling writer or a changeling cook or whatnot. So these are all the things that are out there. So Tim, there was some discussion on the Slack thing. I don't know if you had a chance to see about that. And I know that Jose, Vince, and Sherry have chosen their seeming for their characters. So it kind of narrows it down to 3. I hope that's going to be okay for you. Okay. Jose, remind me, which seeming did you choose for your character?
So I chose a Ferrist.
Okay. All right. So we have our Ferrist character there. And then Vince, you did the Darkling?
Yes.
Okay. And then Sherry, you're doing an ogre, right?
An ogre, yes.
Okay. So that leaves the beast, the elemental, and the wizened. Do any of those appeal to you, Tim?
Yes, I think I would go with beast.
Okay.
Please.
Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the elemental and the wizened tab. Let me hide that. And there is a walkthrough for character creation. There's a tab that has the steps that you're going to walk through. Basically, you're going to choose your court. You're going to assign numbers to your stats. You're going to choose a couple of moves. You're going to make up a name for your kith. There's a lot of examples and add-ons in the sheet to work from. The one thing I want to mention about your stats here that is a little bit different from standard PbtA is that you notice that your stats are kind of emotional states. Your stats are joy, anger, fear, sorrow, calm, and power. So when you go to roll something, you're going to tell me what you're feeling. You're going to tell me what is driving you to that, and you'll roll based on that state. And you might say to yourself, hey, why wouldn't I always roll my best emotion? And that is because if you take harm, or if you take a damage, say from failing a roll, then I will say, why don't you mark that stat? So if you rolled with joy and you did very badly, I might say mark joy. And there's a little drop down so you can turn joy for a little cross through. And that means while that is marked, you cannot roll with that stat. So your damage track is your stats. You can opt to choose the drained condition, which is down at the bottom instead of marking a stat, but that's some fancy stuff at that point. I won't talk about that too much, but just know that stats are not set to particular moves. So you'll always be able to choose on those things. Yes, Vince.
So clarifying question on that, since each of these stats, like they have an emotional tenor behind them.
Mm-hmm.
If we're intending to, like if say like fear gets marked, should we try to aim toward having a different emotional tenor the next time that we do a move because we can't tap into our fear?
Yeah. There's a couple of ways you can read that. You can read that either as like you've kind of tamped that out. You can't draw on that strength, or you're rolling on one of these other stats, but that fear is overwhelming for you right now. Like it's unclear. You basically you can kind of narrate how that is.
Okay.
So could I ask?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I'm envisioning my character, I tried some stats, but I don't know if I did it right.
Sure.
Should I be? I know there's an emotional tone to the character, like the predominant emotions that I imagine him feeling, and he's also Winter Court, so he's probably going to be towards the grief and sorrow kind of angle. Does that mean necessarily that sadness should be my plus 2, or should I be having something else in my mind as I'm thinking about? I don't know what to think about character-wise when I'm marking these moves.
I think one of the things is to kind of take something now, and then if you feel like maybe it isn't representing who your character really is, we can swap those around. A lot of the times it's just about like what's in the back of your mind when you're doing something. Like what is your character kind of echoing or feeling? Sometimes it's very forefront. I'm angry, and that's what's driving me right now. But sometimes it might just be, I'm not in a great place. I'm not feeling great, and I'm rolling with sorrow because I don't want to be doing this. So yeah, there's a lot of room for maneuver there.
And the power one, is that I'm feeling powerful, or 'cause
Yes,
it's not
that's
quite like
you're
the other
feeling
two.
in control and powerful and
Okay.
dominant. It actually reflects sort of what the keepers are. If calm represents trying to be more human, power is about embracing all the weirdness and wildness and power that you can bring to bear.
That's helpful. Thanks.
Okay. So Sherry, Tim, everybody, I'll let you go on the character thing. I'm going to stop talking. If you have questions, ask them. When we kind of get to a good spot, then we'll talk a little bit about the Freehold and about how we want to do introductions. Okay.
I have one quick question for the other players, since Jose and I talked a lot in the Slack, and I kind of went a little deep into my character Allison. One thing I brought up in the Slack, and Jose was the only person who had a chance to engage on it. I framed her as serving her durance at the age of 15, like all in one night. My original thought is that she's pretty recently out of it, and is just trying to like find out what this new life is. If having a character who is 15 and going through all that is in any way uncomfortable for anybody, I'm absolutely happy to have that experience still have been when she was at 15, but have her in her early 20s. She's more like come into understanding her way in the world. And if that's cooler for people, I'm happy to go that route.
I'm going to say as a GM for me, just a little bit older,
Cool.
18, 19, early 20s would make me more comfortable with the kinds of things that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. I'll make her 22 then.
And that's the age of the current character of the character as they are now, not when they were abducted, right?
Yeah. Abducted at 15, 22 now.
And mine was abducted at 9, but I can age that up if it's creeping people out.
If you were abducted when you were young, as long as we have the sense of your character has maturity, emotional maturity in the present, looks like a late teen or an early adult, then I'm cool with that.
Okay.
I will note for the rival, which is kind of a drop down to choose a rival. All of those NPCs are on the NPC tab. They're from the different courts. They're marked out there. I also encourage when we'll get to entanglements, we'll do introductions before we do entanglements. But those NPCs will be on the table for use in that case.
Are we, is there a reason to try to be from different courts?
That's always a question. And one of the things is having two people from the same court, like allows them to both maneuver and help each other out. On the flip side, having everybody in a different court gets you someone who can hear about what's going on in all of them. I'm never sure what the best idea is. Sherry?
It's all good. I don't know. It's like you have different kinds of complications. I think one of my favorite ones was when 2 of us were in one court and 2 were in the other one, and we had as much competition as we did cooperation within the motley. But it doesn't matter because Lowell will make it untenably difficult to turn us around. Don't worry.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, and in terms of what I need you to go up to in terms of character creation is go up to 7, pick your rival, and stop there.
I'm just trying to figure out where to put my picture on this sheet again. When are you going to redesign these for pictures?
Yes, yes.
And I have 2 different pictures I need.
Vince, do you want to share your Motley idea or do you want to wait?
I'll share it, and I'll share it loosely because it's a germ of an idea. But if we had all over time formed a support group, so like we meet once a week just to kind of talk about the things that have been going on in our lives as kind of a Durant's Anonymous sort of group. But then we've gotten pulled into different situations with each other.
And that's an interesting thing because that's a very different from most changelings avoid talking about or dealing with that. So that is a really unusual thing. It may be that you're trying to do the support group, but maybe you're still struggling with that right now.
Or we got told we had to. Like a kind of penance because we really messed up at some point. I mean, that would work for my character.
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep that in mind when we talk about the do introductions. We talk about the Freehold because that might be a great dynamic to establish.
So for the mask and the other one, do you pronounce it Maine?
I've always said mean, but I don't know. It may be mine. Um, uh, you can put a little descriptor in there. You don't have to necessarily write in anything. You can grab a picture, put it in there. People approach that differently. That's kind of a free space for that.
Awesome. Okay, sounds good.
Wait, I can't see Sherry's character art. Where did you see it, Vince?
It's over on the side to get more space for it. So if you go to,
Oh. Ah.
You all were so beautiful. I had to work it out on the other side of the equation.
I'm gonna do that too.
that's better.
So I'm going to give you another 5 minutes. You may be going, oh no, I've got all these things to do. But anything you don't choose, anything you haven't quite got, now you can fill it in and get set when we're playing. So about 5 minutes, we'll do some introductions. did you have a question, Vince, or are you pointing towards your dog? If we're lucky, the cat will walk right in front of Sherry's camera at some point. All right. What I'd like to do is go and have each of you kind of introduce your character, the concept, talk with you about the durance, those kinds of things, moves chosen, and so on, to get that set up before we go to entanglements. And I think I want to start with Jose. So tell us who your character is.
Sure. So my character's name is Jack, Jack Shadowthorne. He was abducted during the Great Depression when he was 9 years old. He wandered into a traveling carnival and just never came out again. And then he's just popped back into the real world after escaping. Somehow, we don't know how, fairy. He is a fairist, and his kith is flowering, and his transformation during his durance was into basically an ornament, a flower ornament. So he didn't have power or leadership so much as he was prettifying parties mostly, and palaces. So at times his durance was quite pleasant when he was being adored and caressed and smelled by these powerful fey beings. But it was also horrible at times when he was sent to the greenhouse, for instance, where he would be snip, snip, pruned over and over and over again and harvested. or left in rooms kind of perversely where no one ever entered, so where he would slowly fade in his beauty and drop all his petals, or sent out to some corner of the garden for winter for the chilling, so that his blooms would be more powerful in the spring. So he is a winter court, which is so he's focused on staying hidden and knowing hidden secrets, and he got very good at eavesdropping during his turn, since you don't expect the flowers to be listening to your secrets, but they were. And so he kind of keeps a low profile, which is kind of a challenge for him because he is a fairist, so he does want to be adored. Yet the rules of the winter court are clear that you should not be taking up a lot of space or taking up a lot of attention. So that's one of his conflicts. Yeah, what else should I talk about? The moves?
So tell us what you took for the moves. You start with the Ferris, which is the center of attention, where you can
Right.
hold someone's attention. What did you choose for the other two that you wanted?
Okay, so the other two, one is wheels within wheels, which is part of his attitude of collecting intelligence. He's kind of, I guess he has a spy aspect to him in the sense that he's trying to collect intelligence about other people in order to remain safe. So he has a knack for that. And so he gathers people into his webs and he learns secrets about them using that move. And then the evasion of shackles is that he's very just good at slipping out of things. And he has a slippery nature. Yeah, so those are the two moves I chose for that.
And I see you called the place where you were was the Pageant of Flowers.
The Pageant of Flowers, yes, in the court of Pernilla the Sublime.
And what do you miss about it?
What he misses about the Pageant of Flowers is all those moments where he was adored and caressed and sniffed, and the hands and the noses and the faces of these powerful fae beings giving him all the attention. That's what he misses.
And what is like the emotion, because that's how the changelings regain their strength, is through strong emotions from people. What is the one that tastes the best to you?
Jack loves grief, but regret is really quite tasty, and lost hope, and nostalgia is a good one. Disillusionment, those kinds of sentiments are his favorites. What else did I write? Oh, disappointment, of course, and reverie.
And your ambition?
His ambition is he really wants to move the hearts of men and gods and the fae to poignant intensity. He really wants people to be impacted by him. So another conflict with his membership in the Winter Court.
So unlike a lot of changelings who've come back who like have a family or a fetch or anything like that, you are truly isolated from where you were before.
Yeah.
And how long do you think you've been out of the hedge?
I was
months,
thinking about
years,
a couple of years.
Couple of years. So you've had a chance to kind of get, what is it about the modern world that maybe still bothers you or you can't quite wrap your head around?
I'm thinking like the noise. Just the noise of if we're going to be in an urban environment, I'm sure he's sensitive to the noise and to and the pollution in the air and all those different kinds of things. Oh, he's a flower, so pollution's not going to be good for him. So I would think that that's one of the hardest things for him to get used to.
And who did you choose for your rival?
Oh, I chose, what's her name again? Gloriana Twofold. She should be called Two-Faced. She's a heart spinner of the fairest of summer, and she broke the heart of someone that I care about.
Okay. And do you think that you like other Fairest? Are you drawn to them, or are they too much like you and you stay away from them? Or do you feel pretty neutral about that?
Well, since she's my rival, maybe I don't like other Fairest.
Okay. Yeah.
I can go with that.
Okay. I think that gives us a good set of ideas about your character, gives a good sense of who you are. We're going to go around, get everybody's stuff set, and then we'll come back and look at those entanglements for you. So let's come to our Darkling, Vince.
All right, thank you. So I'm playing Allison Dodgson. She is a Whisper Wisp Darkling of the Autumn Court. And she was abducted at the age of 15 when she went to sleep one night, and in the timey-wiminess of the Hedge, she experienced years of torment in Fear's palace. She was made a child's plaything of ignorance and want, who played with her very roughly. She took the form of a porcelain doll and was broken and shattered and torn repeatedly. And I think wizened changeling servants were made to repair her. So she has probably a lot of affection for the wizened. Eventually, over years of this torment, eventually the children grew bored of her, and she was effectively discarded, which I think was where she ran into her first interactions with Spinning Jenny, the fate spider fairest of Autumn, who continues to haunt and torment her, even having left the Durance.
Oh, so you know and remember her from that time in the Durance, and now she's also out here in the Freehold.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Um,
Let me ask you a question before
Yeah.
you get too much further. Why was she taken? Does she know why? Like what was it? Was it just being forcibly pulled? Was it something she wished for? Does she not know?
I think she doesn't know. I think that
Okay.
she's tried to form theories since escaping. She thinks that seeing that she took on that form of a very delicate object of this porcelain doll, that
Mhm.
she may have been seen as a delicate person, somebody that could get pushed around and wouldn't fight back.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, go on. I'm sorry, I interrupted you there.
That's okay. So she woke up the next morning in her bed, still 15, but having experienced, these ages and ages of tremendous trauma, and had been a very sociable teenager, but just felt very shut off and distant as a result of that. Her, the
So she did try to return to her normal life when she returned?
Initially, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because she had been gone for such a brief period of time in the real world, but could not connect back. It just wasn't working for her. Teachers noticed, got her into counseling, which is where eventually she started having regular therapy sessions with Dr. Karen M. Which also, I think one of the big aspects of that therapy was doing mindfulness and hypnosis, which ended up sending her back into the Hedge.
Mm.
So she has a negative reaction to therapeutic methods. And after a couple of years of trying to struggle to find herself again, she ran away from home. I'm on the fence, and whatever seems like a good idea to you, Lowell, I'm cool with, on whether when she ran away, the keepers recognized that happened and sent in to fetch just after, or perhaps I'm thinking of Stranger Things season 1, where they find Will's body but it's not actually Will's body. They basically made some
That's
kind
got to
of
be
homunculus.
horrifying. Like, there was like that, that's not you. And yes, you wanted to run away, but if the parents find this and they gave up right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's particularly bleak. So yeah, we'll go with that.
Nice.
Autumn, for the court?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about the moves that you chose.
Sure thing. So my starting move is Know the Shadows. When I secretly scope out a person or place using study, I get a couple of additional questions that I can pull from that. Let's see here. And on a miss, I find myself in over my head, and the GM will tell you why it's a bad spot. For optional moves, I took One with the Dark. As long as there are shadows and concealment, I can attempt to become invisible and undetectable for a scene. On a hit, no one can see or interact with me until I choose to break that, whether by choice or by attacking. On 7 to 9, I can stay hidden, but there's some trace of me that's left behind, so people know that I had been there. And then my other optional one was Haunt the Darkness, which is when you terrorize someone from the shadows, take +1 forward on conflict. On a 10+, I can remain in shadows.
Yeah.
I thought they had good synergy.
Yeah, you always get that benefit if you roll a 10+ and the conflict, always be able to remain there. Let me come down here. So let's look at the couple of these intro questions. What you've got there. Tell us about who you watch from your past life.
So I have an older brother, and at the time that I was taken, he was a college student. I tried to reconnect with him after I'd run away from home, but my body had already been found, so he thought this was just a very cruel prankster of some kind. I definitely have a different look that's been a part of my mask. So he thought this is just like some really creepy young woman who was deciding to take advantage of his torment and having lost a sibling who seemingly knowed everything about him and about his younger sister. He's now, though, he is a struggling actor in the city. And I find ways to attend every show that he does. I think that to give you something fun to play with, I think that he's recently been cast as Nick Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream, depending on time of year, a performance in the park.
Excellent. And is there something weird that's happening around that you're investigating?
I had not thought much about that one.
Okay. Let's put a pin in that one. We can come back to that. I like that we've got an interesting parallel between you and Jack, in that Jack was taken a very long time, gone for a very long time. You were taken, gone for such a short amount of time. Like there's an interesting flip there. All right. We'll come back to you to talk about entanglements here in just a bit. Sherry, tell us about your ogre.
All right, so my ogre's name is Relentless Third. Her person's name, her former life, Jamelle Givens. And essentially, let's see here, how to describe her. Like, she was a cross-country runner, as was her brother. Her family was very much about sports, improving themselves, and being excellent at everything all the time, and always trying and always keeping going. And her twin brother and she were always sort of there together doing those things. And essentially, she remembers running. He was slightly ahead of her. She saw him get pulled into the woods, and she went after him, and she never found him. And when finally she saw lights in the distance and went there, that was when she was taken into her durance. And essentially, she had to carry these huge lanterns at the instructions, at very specific, difficult, complicated, you must take them literal instructions to essentially go out and keep this fog at bay. And if you weren't able to, the people behind the lines would like all die. You know, it was this sort of horrible test of endurance and just keeping going and moving and moving and moving all the time. What do you say? And it was hard. It was like a puzzle, like always a logic puzzle, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's who she is. She's come back. She got out. She just remembers being there with the bell and seeing something moving, like where the fog parted, and it wasn't any of the people that were in her durance, and she just sort of dropped the lantern and followed them, and she lost them, but eventually found her way out, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Okay. So that's her. She comes out, she goes home because she doesn't come back from far away from home. And she right away realizes that like years have gone by. So she kind of retreats to figure out what's going on. Finds out she's considered dead. Like she had disappeared that night along with her brother. But like a week later, her brother was found and couldn't remember what had happened. And then was at this long period of being like accused, like suspected of being the one who killed his sister, and wouldn't admit like where he put her or something. And there were like all these people that came forward with stories of like how they competed with each other and hated each other actually secretly, and you know, sort of this kind of weird thing that was like never was the truth. So when she goes back to the house, she's sort of looking around and she sees who she knows as her brother, but it doesn't look like her brother anymore. It looks like this strange, horrible creature. But she knows it's her brother, and her parents are the same, and they're like, but everything's wrong. It's like terrible and awful and not like what she remembers. And so she kind of manages to get her brother aside. He recognizes her immediately. And then it's this kind of thing of trying to, like, she can't come back because she's dead. Or I don't know, they can't figure out like how to bring her back. Like when they talk about it, everyone tells her brother that he's, you know, imagining things, and it's just, it never works out. Does that make any sense? So they kind of go on the run together. And so they've been going from sort of freehold to freehold, but no one will take them because they all say that her brother is a fetch. Does that make any sense?
So you arrived here and they finally did let you in, or have you hidden your brother?
I think they have, you say, conditionally allowed us in.
Okay. And you, the Autumn Court?
Oh, yes.
So the Court of Fear. Tell us about your moves.
So they are very simple. The most basic moves that you could ever expect for an ogre.
Okay.
So prowess, of course. So I can take more damage than most people. Burning Bright. I could always perform superhero human feats of strength. I have a force of presence that makes others secure when I'm around. Once per session, I can clear all marked fear moods among my allies present in the scene. So I am reassuring. I wouldn't say I'm calm, but you know that no one can hurt you if I'm there because I will leap to your defense. And I do want to say, Jamelle is a little bit excitable. So it's so, and then also once per session, I may announce my presence in the perfect place to help someone, ignoring usual limits of time, distance, and plausibility. So I can just show up. Hey, what do you need?
Who did you take for your rival?
Let me tell you. Who did I take? Oh, Terrible Joe.
Okay.
I always take Terrible Joe if I can.
Okay.
Mini Martyr Darkling. Yeah.
And why are they your rival?
Because they spread gossip about me, or more specifically about my brother.
Oh, okay. And let's look at
And he knows nothing.
we could kind of that. So here's the last two questions from your intro questions.
Oh, okay.
What have you never beaten?
I've never beaten the record time that I was told I had to beat in order to get into college with a scholarship. Like, even now, is super human strength and great endurance and all of those things. She just doesn't have the concentration to make it through that cross country race for that long and then beat that time. It is like, no matter how hard she tries, something gets in the way. It might be herself, it might be situations, stuff like that, but she could just never get there.
And what do you regret breaking?
I didn't answer that for a reason. I hadn't figured it out yet.
Do you want to think about it?
Yeah, do you mind?
No, not at
Come
all.
up with it. All right.
All right. So that gives us a good sense on that. Tim, tell us about your beast.
Yeah, his name is Piers Riverrun, perhaps a bit on the nose for a beast who is like affiliated with a fish, but hey, have some fun with the name, I guess. The court is spring, and Kith is cold scales. So I'm thinking, so Kith must be the sort of creature that you were in servitude.
Yeah,
to.
like what you've kind of become, what we would call that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Kind of part of that group. Yeah. So kind of I think that as a child, he was fishing, like lots of kids, it's like he wants to catch like the biggest catfish in the river. Right. And when he's out fishing, he kind of gets pulled in to the river and, ends up in sort of this, this fairy landscape, underwater landscape, and is sort of transformed into this, fish-like creature. I think probably the reason for it is that any ruler needs subjects, right? And so this fishy fey ruler kind of just takes people in and makes them into fishy creatures, and you're just sort of there to be, under his dominion. Be his subjects. And I guess
let me ask you this before you go too
Yeah.
How are you picturing what his changed self looks like now?
So that would be like what like where it says like his mien, right? Is that Yeah, I mean, he has clammy gray skin and just sort of these like glossy fishy eyes. I'm thinking he has like these catfish, these fleshy catfish appendages. I mean, and it just kind of, his skin is just extremely smooth and always looks a bit moist.
Excellent.
Maybe wet fingers.
So a little Abe Sapien with some catfish things.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay. And Springs of Joy. So do you think your character that's a strong feeling for them usually?
Yeah. Well, I and in terms of like how I apportioned the stats, I had calm and joy, and I guess I was thinking fish basically have a very narrow emotional bandwidth, if you know what I mean. So I thought calm would be the biggest.
You go with the flow.
Yeah.
Go with the flow. There you go. I like it. But joy, I mean, I do think that, I guess I was thinking that I think you guys described, and maybe I'm off track here because the endurance is supposed to have been awful. Maybe he didn't hate it as much as you guys did. I don't know. Is that like a thing that can happen, right? Like,
what I think it is I think you can remember it fondly right now, but you know something was bad about it, and maybe you've put it out of your mind.
yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's great, and I think that he has, and I think the part of him that almost feels like he misses it is it's almost like I think he's like has like this physical discomfort, right? Like the way you or I might feel if you're under the water and you're not at the surface yet, and like you wish you could take a breath. You
Yeah.
have to keep holding for just a few seconds. I think he kind of has that feeling all the time, and I think he just feels like very displaced, or like he feels very dry, right? He wants to be he wants to have his skin be wet, things such as that, right? And it's just like these constant reminders that just like he's not comfortable anywhere, because he's kind of between two worlds, which I guess is the case with all of us, but you know, his is like very literally like
Yeah, no.
and above, you know. So
what did you take as your moves?
okay, yeah, so I took transformation, so change into your animal form. I thought that might be appropriate for somebody who rather misses being a fish in some ways, or at least thinks he might. And then I took comes with the territory, so kind of about patrolling the territory.
What do you suppose your territory is? Is there
Yeah,
a river? Is there a lake? Something else?
So this is kind of like an urban setting, is that right? I'm thinking it's more like if anything, it's more like a drainage ditch.
Okay.
Yeah, it's or kind of like a storm water reservoir. Nothing as pristine as a river or a lake, but a patch of, you know, someplace in the city where water is diverted, where it's probably very muddy and you know, noxious weeds grow around the edges of it, and you know, there's algae blooms in the summertime, but you know, there's a little bit of life there.
Like, I mean, a lot of American cities are founded on bodies of water, just for trade purposes. So I don't know if that might impact things depending on where we start.
Well,
yeah,
I definitely like the idea of that this is one of those areas of water that while there might be other fresher sources or lakes or rivers around, that you've taken up this kind of misbegotten drainage section. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about like his endurance too, I'm thinking like he got sucked into a river, right? He got pulled into a river fishing for a catfish. So he got like his like this fishy fairy world that he was in. It's not like the Little Mermaid glittering seashells under the sea. It was like it's like 3 feet of muck and, you know, like bottom feeding fish and crawdads, you know, it's that kind of like American river basin kind of a vibe, right? And so I think like this idea that he would seek out kind of like this mucky, stagnant area where, you know, there's probably swarms of mosquitoes, right? So that's kind of the that's the territory.
So who did you choose for your rival?
I thought because his territory is really important to him, I chose Songbird Rex.
Okay.
Long lost beast of summer, stole into your den and did something. You're sure?
Okay.
I thought that's probably the thing that would bother me the most, right? Is I have my little mucky, wet corner of the world, and somebody's messing with it.
How long ago do you think you were taken, like in the real world time?
Well, I guess I have a question about that. Is this idea that you're taken and you come back, and no matter how much time passed, you're the same age?
Yeah, well, it depends. You could have aged while you were in your durance or not. It's entirely up to you about like what happens, because time, changes and works differently in different places.
Yeah, okay. So I'm thinking that, pulled in as a kid, fishing on his own. Maybe he was 11 and, came back and maybe 30 years had passed.
Okay.
And he looked it. Yeah, and, he came back as this middle-aged man who himself, whether he was always going to age this way or whether it was some aspect of his endurance, this kind of bald guy with rather smooth skin and glassy eyes, so I think his mask in a way mirrors his sort of his mien in a way.
Mhm.
And, he came back looking that way regardless.
Do you think he still has family alive around here?
Yeah, it's possible, I suppose. I hadn't thought. Yeah, I'd have to think.
I like the idea that maybe that hasn't occurred to him as a thing that's important yet to find your family.
Right.
Let me ask you one more question. So you changed to a fish, you enjoy it, you're living there in this watery, mucky, carp-driven kingdom. Like, how did you hold on to your humanity? Like what kept you from going all the way over to just forgetting that you were ever a human?
Oh, wow, gosh, yeah. That's a really good question. And if anyone has any ideas for me, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'll need to think for a moment. Um, yeah, it's right on there. How did you preserve the last shreds of your humanity?
Well, let's do this. I'm going to have you think about that. Now, I like the idea of a memory from your childhood, something like that.
I like
Let's do
that.
this. We're going to take a 10-minute break. When we come back, we're going to talk entanglements. And when I come back around to you, maybe if you'll have an answer for that question, and we'll get those things set. I also, when we come back, I'll go through what we've chosen in terms of safety tools. We'll get the entanglements, and then we'll talk about what our city location is going to look like. Okay. So let's take about 10 minutes. So we'll come back at about past. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the entanglements. And entanglements are a triangle. Basically, they're a relationship that you have with someone else that is complicated by your relationship with a third person. And you're going to come up with two of these entanglements. I've got some examples, some choices there, but if something else occurs to you that you want to do differently, feel free to. One of them is going to be sort of a general entanglement, and the other one's going to be a romantic entanglement. Now, a romantic entanglement can be deep, passionate love. It can be crush. It can be unrequited. It can just be strong affection. However you want to define, what your character feels in that. And those will also, once we've got them, then they'll generate a debt, because there are some debt moves that you can use through play. It'd be great if in one of those two entanglements you wrap in another PC. That'd be cool. We do have a bunch of NPCs on the NPCs tab drawn from that you can draw from. Or if you have another, if there's something you really want to make up, then we can add them. So we're going to go around, everybody do one, and then we'll have you do the other one. So let's start with Jack. Jack, we got the general romantic. Which one do you want to look at first? Which one do you want to pick first?
Let's try the romantic one.
Okay. So do one of those two appeal to you?
Let's see. Let me just. Sorry. I like the idea of thwarted desire.
Okay.
Yeah, it leaves it open to why it's thwarted. Maybe it's unrequited. Maybe it's just not known. Maybe it's someone's getting in the way. I like that.
So you have a thwarted desire for someone, and we've got this other person who knows about it.
Right.
So who do you have? A thwarted, unrequited, rejected desire for.
I just saw a kitty tail. It distracted me. Sorry.
So, absolutely. There you go.
I'm better now. Okay.
And I'll just toss out there, Jose, that one of my romantic entanglements is I rejected person one, but now they're with person two. So just as far as synergy, that is an option.
Wait, say that one more time, Vince.
So one of my romantic entanglement options is I rejected person one, but now they're with person two, and I want them desperately. What changed?
Okay. It's complicated. I'll try to figure that out. I think I did create an NPC that I thought
Okay.
you would be attracted to. So I could use that NPC, and but person one could be one of us, or it could be somebody else with less kindly intentions, maybe.
Absolutely. It could be your rival. It could be somebody from your court or someone from another court. Who is the object of your affection? Which NPC did you add here?
I created one called Isaac Sylvanbread. So
that is a good looking guy.
Yeah. So there's something about him that, he's he brings up kind of what would it be like to have grown wild in the forest.
Nice.
And that's bringing up kind of this yearning in Jack, because Jack was always in these very kind of manicured and controlled gardens. And so there's something about his wildness that really, but he's an elemental, so he doesn't really think about matters of the heart very much. And so he's taking little notice of him.
Yeah. So it's not even that he's rejected you. It's that he doesn't even like realize.
Which is hard for Jack because he likes to be adored. Yeah.
Excellent. So do you want that realization to be somebody who maybe wants to help you? Or do you think it's somebody who is maybe making fun of you or is holding over you? What kind of entanglement do you want from that?
Maybe a helping would be helping and maybe not helping in the right way.
Okay.
That kind of thing might be a good one. So maybe Vince, can Allison be the one? Who knows?
Sure.
And what do you suppose is Allison's way of helping?
That is a good question.
I think that Allison does not know how to wingman very well. And
that's why I chose her.
and thinks that that she can get really close to Isaac and then be like, who really likes you though is Jack. And that form of intention is not going well. I think if Isaac is feeling drawn to anybody, it's probably to Allison.
All right. Yeah, I like that. So yeah, that gives us your romantic entanglement, Jack. I'm going to come around and we'll get your general one here in a sec. For Allison, do you want to do do you want your general one or your romantic first?
I'll do my general first, which is I
Okay.
stole something from person one in order to alienate them.
Oh, look at all these
person
typos.
two.
Look at all these typos in this sheet.
In order to alienate them.
Oh my gosh.
Totally
So who did you steal from? And who did you pin it on?
Yeah, I'd like to have stolen from another one of the PCs.
Okay.
And pin it on an NPC that they would have wanted to be better tied to.
Okay.
I'm willing to take volunteers.
Does anyone want to volunteer for this complication? Maybe.
Sure.
Okay.
I have lots of good stuff that people would steal and want. So
Great.
And who are you trying to keep me away from?
Let's see. Oh, wait, no, hold on.
Do I have good taste? Bad taste?
Give me 1 second because is it gonna let me? Does it let me edit these?
Yeah, it should.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
It's when I hit enter that it gave me an issue.
Oh, okay.
Let's take a look at our NPCs.
And that can be alienation in terms of friendship or
Yeah.
or assisting or love.
Lean and hungry Mike looks like a friendly guy. I like questions so loud.
Yeah, all of those are good.
Let's go with questions so loud.
Okay. So questions so loud. Let's establish their pronouns. I don't think we have. Are they he, she? Are they he, him, or she, her, or they, them, or something else?
They, them.
Okay. And tell me, Vince, what do you think you stole? Like let's have the two of you kind of work that out.
I think does Gemma or sorry Jamella, does she hold on to anything from the before times, like any trinket of her family?
Hmm. You know, I think she probably still has the house keys. Does that make any
Oh.
sense?
That's great.
Yeah,
I like that. Well, you did.
I did. I can't find them.
Can't find
I
'em.
panic. I turned the apartment upside down.
It happened after Questions So Loud was there,
Mhm.
and it's pretty clear who took them. Okay, that's great. Then let's come then to you, Sherry. Do you want to do your romantic or your general first?
Oh, these are. I should have thought about it.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me check and see where. I think after I realized what a scumball question so loud was, I turned my attention to someone even more fabulous because I'm an upbeat person. And I think, let's see, Ashwine is in winter. So let's see here. I'm looking at my things.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, okay. So I like that my adoration of Ashwine is undeclared because of my loyalty to Jack. Because aren't you in winter, Jack? Because I figure the two of you are in competition for some of the courtly duties. So
Ashwine is kind of
maneuvering for some power.
Okay.
But he's brilliant, like the lanterns.
And you said he, him?
Yeah. Well, I say he, him. No one has ever said he, him. That's
Okay.
just what Gemma or Jamala thinks in her.
Okay. I'll make a note of angling for power. That is going to bring us to Piers. You are muted. Muted.
Thank you very much.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, so I was kind of looking at the romantic entanglement, and I think, Piers is very calm. He's downright cold-blooded,
Mhm.
So anyway, I don't think it's like a romantic desire, but maybe there's like another beast that he feels like an affection for, maybe someone else who's like affiliated with water in some way, who comes to his den, but and I have this one that says, I'm drawn to object of affection, but their motley mate is a sworn enemy. So maybe their motley mate is Songbird Rex, who I'm sure
Oh, okay.
keeps on showing up with, this other person. And I think Songbird Rex is doing, I don't know what they're doing to my den, but they're doing something. So
we've got, in terms of beast, we've got Sainted Coils on the NPCs tab, who is sort of snakes and aquatics. And then someone added Avery Mistwalker, a waterborne elemental.
I put that one in.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome to use them.
Yeah. Maybe the waterborne elemental.
Okay.
Sure.
So you are sort of drawn to this Avery Mistwalker, like there's certain affection, but he's in a motley with Songbird Rex, who you cannot stand.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Songbird Rex, what pronouns do you want to use for them?
She, her, I think.
Okay, absolutely. All right. So that gets us your romantic entanglement, which brings us back around to Jack. Let's get your other entanglement.
All right. Let's see. What do I got here? Well, I'm interested in the person one is intimate with my friend, person two, but I doubt they have their interests in heart. What raised your suspicion? But I don't know if anyone's already got a romantic entanglement that might fit into that. If that's the romantic entanglement for them, intimate with. Doesn't have to be romantic, actually.
Right, it could just be friendship.
Friendship, yeah.
I'm already tied to you on your other entanglement, so.
I don't have a connection with Gemma.
Okay.
It's true. And she's pals with everyone.
She's pals with everybody.
Yes.
So who is it that you are suspicious of?
Tell me some of your friends, Gemma. Who am I suspicious of?
Well, let's see here. It would be someone that you know better than I do for some reason.
Are there any Winter Court people?
Yeah, that's what I was going to look at. I got to get Winter Court up in here. I bet. Oh, I bet that Gemma thinks Abyssinian Max is hilarious.
This ties so well with my romantic entanglement idea.
Oh, awesome.
All right, but I don't think Abyssinian Max has your best interests in mind, Gemma.
Abyssinian Max has no one else's best interests at there.
He's a sly one.
Yeah.
Can't trust cats.
there is that. Okay. Awesome. That gets us that general. So let's come back to your other one, Allison.
Yeah. So my romantic is I've rejected person one, but now that they're with person two, I want them desperately. And what changed? And I had already been leaning toward Abyssinian Max for that. So I think one of the questions for Jamelle is it a romantic relationship with Abyssinian Max, or is it not? Because I can pick a different NPC if it's not.
You know how girls can be like really close to each other and it's really hard to tell whether it is or not? Let's put it in that sort of thing, that it's like they are incredibly physically, always with each other and laughing and giggling and, yeah, they are always in physical contact with each other when they're
So
around each other.
she, her for Max, I'm hearing.
Uh, no, well, yeah, she, they, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah, I think she days good.
excellent.
And yeah, I think that in Allison's case, like Abyssinian just came on really strong, and that forceful of a personality is just kind of initially a turnoff. Allison was more scared than anything else, and then just seeing how much fun the two of you are having together just grits my teeth. I'm like, it's got to be fake, because it's not as fun as it looks, because nothing could be as fun as that looks.
Nice.
Silly.
And that brings us back to you, Relentless Third.
Yeah, so I have a sort of interesting one. I like that we have all these like levels of protection for each other. That's working really well. So I like, let's see here. Let's look at the spring court and see what we got going on. Because it's a great way to bring in NPCs. Yeah. Oh. Semolina Pilchard, distiller, Wisened. I think Gemma would never pick up just how cranky she was. I like the idea that Gemma depends on Semolina Pilchard to watch out for peers. And she goes to see Semolina all the time and says, "How's Piers doing? Everything okay? Need anything to, help things?" Yeah, he's a little awkward, kind of a cold fish, So she's always looking out for him. And Semolina is, how do you say?
Maybe a little irritated with you.
A little irritated with me, but understands why I'm asking.
I like that. Is that okay with you, Tim? Okay. Then let's come to your other entanglement for Piers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty open to suggestions, frankly. I like this one that says person one hired you for a job involving person two, and you fucked it up. Because I feel like fucking things up would be exactly what like this sort of spaced out fish person would do. So, and I'd love to pull some of you guys into it, but
Okay, go for it.
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, what would the job be? Like maybe one of you hired me to do something. No, you wouldn't have done that, would you?
It would have just
Maybe.
asked you.
You would ask me, yeah.
Yeah.
Ask me to do something.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, when I came into the Freehold, I'll tell you a thing. As was his duty, Mr. Pinch stopped I and my brother at the border and had to question us and make us make the vows and everything. But I got pissed because I didn't know what he was doing, and I broke the headlights on his classic Studebaker truck. So
Yeah.
I regret that now. And so I have asked you to search around and find some of these for you. I just assumed that you understood how to use the internet, and I went on with my happy life. And so, but every once in a while I ask, did you get them yet?
So wait, you asked me to get headlights?
Yes.
Okay. I love it. I just wanted to clarify.
Imagine you
For
trying to
Mr.
dredge
Bitch.
him up from a lake shore.
Yeah,
That would probably work.
I would have dredged up like broken ones that somebody like, yeah, they like pushed their car into a drainage ditch, because they were too cheap to get rid of it properly, and I popped out headlights, and that's what I offered to this guy, and yeah, courtesy of Gemma. So
Understand why
smelled
Mr.
really
Pitch is
bad.
still mad at me.
great, I love it.
Excellent. So here's a mechanical thing. We have in the game debt moves. This is kind of taken from Urban Shadows. And you're going to start with a debt that someone owes you and a debt that you owe someone. And you should draw those from those entanglements. And there's a little space for that on the character sheet. Like I1, J1, of those there. You don't have to fill those in right now. You can think about that. The debt moves are very like situational. Sometimes people don't use them very much at all, and sometimes people really lean into them. Especially we've got a Ferrist who has some moves that tie into those. So you'll have a chance to come up with those things.
Can you give an example of what a debt move, what a debt would look like?
Oh, sure. So under situational moves, we've got essentially when you offer to do someone a favor and they say, yes, do this for me, then they give you a debt, like you owe them. And then later on, there's a move called cash in a debt, which essentially allows you to call in that debt and get somebody to do something, either an NPC or a PC. And if they don't want to do it, then they have to roll. So it's building up a currency you can use to get other characters to do things, and that they have to resist. Does that make sense?
So it just looks like Joe owes Mary a debt. It doesn't have to be characterized in any other way?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Let's take 5, and then we'll come back and let's set up some initial scenes here. How does that sound? Okay. So before we get too much further, let me check in on our safety tools just so we're all calibrated on the same page for this. Right now, we have hard lines on dental horror, sexual assault, torture, and virus, pandemic, plague. This is actually always a question with modern games these days. I ran Nice Black Agents earlier this year, and it was a real question. So this is another timeline. The COVID, that's not something that has happened or is going to happen in the course of this. We're going to set that aside as a thing. So that's not an issue. And then for veils, we have veils on harm to animals, harm to children, and homophobia. We've also got an ask first on homophobia there. So if there's going to be that issue, Rise, we're going to check in, and even then we will elide that if that pops up. And then a veil on racism. And then the last thing besides the homophobia ask first is we also have an ask first on suicide, if that's a thing that would occur. So those are all out there as issues. Now, let me ask, what kind of city, we're going to say US, just for the ease of my play here. Jose, what kind of city are you, like if you were going to say now, having heard what we've talked about, if you're going to throw out a couple of cities that would be interesting to play in, or you think that might fit with this, what would you say?
Well, I had put in the chat before that it was sounding Midwestern to me somehow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Something about what Tim was saying, and about the catfish and the river, and maybe it's something on the Mississippi somewhere.
Okay.
And I was thinking that maybe Jack, I'm thinking Dust Bowl from his early life. And so if he returned somewhere geographically near where he left, that would also be Midwest somewhere too.
So like St. Louis, or
I was thinking St.
Kansas,
Louis
St.
specifically.
Louis?
I
all
don't know
of you,
St. Louis, so you'd have to educate me on St. Louis, but
but this is going to be a verisimilitude of St. Louis. We've got a waterway
Shot in
there.
Toronto.
Everyone's vague impression of St. Louis.
Yes.
we get to project on St. Louis everything we want.
I understand they have some pizza that they're very, very fond of that they call St. Louis pizza. That's what I know.
Tim, are you good with that? Okay. So we have this urban centers. This is not like, the metropolis of New York or Chicago, but it's a Midwestern city. It's sprawling, different areas to it. I know there's St. Louis and East St. Louis and some divisions there in terms of neighborhoods. So Allison, let me come back to something that you suggested early on, that you are motley, but you have been tasked as a group to do some kind of talk therapy, group therapy. Do you think that's something that, like, we see you in a church basement and just the four of you, or is there someone who's leading the group, who's been assigned by the Freehold to oversee this?
What I almost picture, I picture it being the four of us, but we probably have like big issues that are going on that are clearly going to stretch out of this meeting, and I've been assigned to lead it, but that basically means that I'm blowing off the whole thing,
Okay.
and just kind of enjoying stale donuts and bad burnt coffee. Just being like, what do you all want to talk about? I don't have anything to contribute.
And let me roll back a little further here. Relentless Third, why did the Freehold task the four of you to have this kind of group discussion, group therapy? Like, what happened?
I think they put us together because we all showed up in St. Louis like the same night almost, but north, south, east, west, kind of like coming from different directions into the city. And this is just their way of going, okay, let's put them together and see what happens.
So this started maybe to kind of form a motley, and then you've done that and they've tasked you kind of continuing on with this?
I think they did that to form the motley, but we keep showing up because at least two of us feel obligated to on any given night, and then we bother the other ones. Does that make any sense?
So maybe you're not actually solving problems, but you form some kind of bond, and you have done things together. You're very a loose motley in that sense. Let me ask peers, what is the kind of thing that you, if you're avoiding talking about what's going on or things, what is it that you talk about, either you or the group?
So okay, let me just back up a little bit. So I just need to make sure I'm understanding the premise of the game.
Okay.
The point of us all being in this place together is to try to avoid kind of being rediscovered by the fairy creatures that
the court system exists to help keep those wards in place, and by joining the Freehold, you're under certain obligations, which is why they can ask you to do these things.
Okay. And the Freehold is like the four different courts to comprise the Freehold.
Yeah. Right now, the Summer Court is in charge.
Okay. And that's because it's summertime.
It's summertime, but it's getting close to change over to autumn.
Okay. So what is it that they're asking us to do again?
So when you all arrived strangely,
Uh-huh.
you arrived at the same time a couple of years ago, at the different points of the city, and they kind of put you together as a motley and kind of set up this group talk, group therapy thing as a thing they wanted you to do, and you kind of continued on with it. You form some bonds that mean that you are like a motley that works together, but you also have pretty individual lives, and so this is kind of like, every week you meet and you're supposed to talk about things, but maybe you don't.
So we're supposed to talk about things sort of like related to the effects of our endurance and like how
Yeah.
we're reading, but that's painful. So we talk about other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your topic of choice, Piers?
Oh gosh, I think Piers would probably love to talk about the weather and how much rain we've been having or not having.
Have you had storms, or is it drought season? What has been the weather recently?
It's been a bit too dry for Piers' liking, actually. We could use a good rain. The water level isn't as high as it should be, and there's not as many frogs croaking at night. Not enough wetlands around the city. We need more rain.
I like it. And we're about almost on the third anniversary of you all having come out of the hedge. So when we come in on the scene, Jose, tell me something about the room or the setup. Like, what do we see on screen here?
So it's definitely a community center kind of basement. Mildewy smell, and plastic chairs that are kind of cracked, and we all come in from different sides of the room when we enter, just like we enter the city from different directions. So we have a tradition of doing that, and there's this strange era of us really being fond of one another, but really not wanting to be in this room together, but coming together anyways, because it's just kind of a touchstone for being here. We're still getting used to the fact that we're here in this mundane world and we don't understand what the fuck is going on.
So we see you seated, we see the room, the kind of mundanity of it. Allison, what are you doing or not doing to lead the conversation?
I'm setting up a board game of Settlers of Catan. There's too much social anxiety to talk about our own problems that I think distracting the group, and maybe, sometimes when people start getting comfortable playing the game, they're willing to talk more about what's going on in their lives. That's the theory that I'm working off of.
Okay. Is it Gemma or Gemma? How do you want me to say that?
You can say Gem or Jamala.
Gem, like, what is on your mind this week? You see Allison setting up the board game, sitting here in this room. What's like bothering you, or something you want to talk about with the group?
I think I and my brother are moving again. Like, we have a place and it's coming up for lease, and essentially we would have to sign again, but she doesn't know where to move to. So she's like been going around to different parts of the city to look for a place, and she wants to talk about where they should move, which is probably the most boring domestic thing in the whole world, but nothing feels right or sturdy enough to her. So
that seems fair.
she asks each of you what kind of place you have.
Man, that sucks.
Like, do you, let me ask you this, Piers, do you live in that ditch? Do you have a place that you live in your human time? Like what is that for you?
Yeah, so I was imagining Piers, well, not as homeless, but houseless. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Piers is houseless. I was thinking. So I suppose obviously I'd offer my my kind of like stormwater reservoir ditch area. You know, it's a great spot. You cover yourself with mud at night so you don't get the mosquito bites. And yeah, you know, it's cold in the winter, but there's always enough places that you can kind of go into and warm up, you know. So
Yeah, Jem is like, oh, Pierce, where's my brother gonna plug in his computer? Nope, can't do that.
I hear Abyssinian Max has a nice place.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I should ask him. Ooh, maybe we could stay there for at least a little while.
Yeah, sounds like a blast.
It would be so fun. It would be like a constant slumber party. It would be great. Oh, could buy treats. Oh, wait, I'm gonna call her tonight.
So Allison, what is your reaction when you kind of throw that out jokingly and Jem seems to take it seriously?
I
That
suck
hurt?
hard on my teeth. It hurts.
That's interesting because
Um,
we have a move for this.
Ah,
It's called inner turmoil. When you deal with forceful emotional turmoil and pressure from your past lives, endurance, or relationships, roll.
okay.
What is the mood that is like
It's sorrow.
predominant? Okay,
There's regret to this.
then let's have you roll.
Okay,
Do,
well,
oh, did I
I'm
do
getting
it?
a fun start to things. So that's a 5 on the die with a plus
That is a
1.
5 on the die plus 1. So the good news is you get to mark XP.
Woohoo!
But I think I also want you to mark your sorrow.
Okay.
You do that by doing that little drop down, like it
Ooh.
gut punches you, and maybe more than you thought it would. And who notices that? Is it Jack that notices it, or is it Piers that notices it?
I think it's Pierce because what I do is like I'm just about ready to start the game and I'm just like, you know what? We've played Catan the last 4 weeks in a row. This is a stupid game. Let's do something else. And I pack it up. And if you know, I'm projecting motivation onto Pierce, but maybe you were really looking forward to playing.
yeah, I mean, I think I definitely was, and I had noticed like I noticed it's strange that you would pack up the game just after having, you know, bothered to get it out and start setting it up. Clearly, you had put some forethought into playing this game. I don't think Piers is anywhere near perceptive enough to understand why you might be upset. Just that, oh, there's something wrong, right? And I just look at you and sort of blink with my kind of, you know, clear, watery looking eyes at you a few times. Just wondering, what is this guy doing?
And I think as you're packing that away, you will hear the door open and kind of look over, and you will see entering into the room is Gloriana Twofold from the Summer Court. She walks in with that. 1 second.
That
I
might be
know this is
work.
going to be spam.
No, that actually
Oh.
might be work.
Yeah.
Hello?
Gloria Twofold looks around the room and kind of maybe appraisingly, and she will look over at you, Jack, Master Shadowthorne.
Gloriano, always so pleasant to see you. What brings you here to this dank basement?
It is dank, isn't it? I hope that you will excuse me. I would not be here were I not sent here. I have
A
been
business?
of a kind. I've been sent here by the Prince of the Summer Court to task your motley with something of discretion. If you're willing to undertake this task, there will be rewards. If you decide not to take this task, I will carry that message back to the Prince of Summer and tell him that you declined to do your duty for the Freehold.
Jack subtly releases the smell of putrid farts like all around the room. and he does it in a way that seems like it's coming from Gloriana's vicinity.
Well, this place is truly, yeah, you should have it looked at. I would prefer your answer. Do you wish to listen to what I have to say?
Oh, please continue. We're all ears, Gloriana.
I mean, we were ready to start playing a board game, but you can continue.
Well,
Don't mind me.
I won't. And with your leave, I will continue on. A thing has happened in the Freehold, and you have been tasked to look into the matter. I am looking to the matter as it relates to the Summer Court, and Allison, what is it? You're with the is it autumn or winter?
Autumn
Oh, that's right.
coming into power soon.
For whatever that's worth. And Jack, are you also autumn?
I'm in the winter court.
See, this works out
You
perfectly.
forget.
This is Jeff always checking in and things. There has been a theft in the Freehold.
I've been here all night.
I know. This occurred. Well, we're uncertain exactly when it occurred, but some of the magical resources, the hedge fruits and such that have been stored away against the coming winter. Well, in preparation for the change from summer to autumn, we went to look at that and they are gone. I have looked into the matter from the Court of Summer, and now I will ask each of you to discreetly, without raising too much of a fuss, ask within your own courts and even beyond to see what you can find out about this situation. Is that amenable to you, Master Shadowthorne?
Perhaps I could consult with my colleagues. And there are some
Absolutely,
delicious
absolutely. In fact,
donuts
let
over
me
there.
step out to get a breath of fresh air while you chat with them.
I make sure that the smell follows her as she
Oh,
goes out.
what is with this place? So yeah, she will step well out of earshot so that the four of you can consult.
Oh, Jim looks up from her phone like, what did she say again?
Hedge fruit missing.
I've been setting up the Settlers of Catan game again ever since I heard Allison say we were about to play. Oh, she changed her mind.
Well,
Okay.
let's think about this. We're all going to need sustenance as we head into the colder months. And I don't want to fall under the ire of the prince for certain.
It would be good to have him in our debt.
Wait, what are you talking about? What does the prince need?
Oh, relentless. There's been a theft.
Oh,
The summer court, the prince of the summer court wants us to investigate, and he sent this trollop to come task us with this. A smelly trollop at that.
There's a
But-
certain lingering odor in the air.
oh yeah, what is that?
Don't ask. But the question is, do we want to do it?
And I mean, this could be a really easy job. Relentless. I think we should check with questions so loud.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean if something went missing.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Wait, who's gonna ask questions so loud? I'm pissed at her. You don't want me to do it.
I mean, discretion is the order.
Oh no, what are you gonna need me for then? I'll just step out of this.
Well, if discretion doesn't get us the results that we need,
I'll punch him.
sometimes punching is discretion carried on by other means. So
Yes.
I believe it's famously been
I think
said.
that's what Clausewitz said. Yes.
No, but seriously, what are we looking for?
I think at this point, a lead of any kind. All right. Gloriana doesn't seem to think that's anybody in the summer court, but yeah, if they're stepping out of power, they might just be looking for some way to divert attention.
We're supposed to check in with our respective houses, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, I'll back you up. Wait, no. Allison, no, wait. She's like,
What court am I from?
you can tell how often she shows up, right? Let's see. Oh, I'm in Autumn. Who's in Autumn? Yes.
That would be Allison.
The person who's raised their hand 3 times.
Yeah. Relentless. Yeah.
Relentless.
I will help. I will. I'm sorry. It's just I got to figure out where we're moving to in like 2 weeks. But yeah. Okay. Who's driving?
And I think that's where we're gonna like put our pin here. We'll start out next time with kind of doing a once around to like get a sense of your like home lives and kind of get a sense of if you go to talk to people in your court, like who do you go to talk to? And we'll kind of start out with there, and then we'll do a little more coordination as to how you want to spread out. So that's my goal. Usually at the end of sessions, we'll go through a question and answer for XP and things. Just to make it simple for this first session, we're going to have 3 XP, so you can go ahead and mark that in. It's 5 total XP to get in advance.
Is that
And-
under our, wait, sorry, XP, got it.
Yeah.
You get an extra one, Alice, because you rolled bad.
Yes. But we'll start out with that because it's kind of a session 0 leading into just a little bit of play. We won't do stars and wishes tonight, but we will do that at the end of next session. Though wishes wise, if there's anything between now and next week that you're like, oh, I'd like to see more of this, less of this, this is something I really want to hit, feel free to email me on that, and we'll go through those things. Also, if you're like looking at your character and you're like, this is not what I really wanted, I want to switch some things around, that's possible between now and then. Does that seem cool with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm going to stop the recording.